Okay, if your foundation is wrong, your building may end up cracking. If your foundation is wrong, your building may end up sinking. If your foundation is wrong, your building may end up even collapsing. In this video, I'm going to bring to you 5 major mistakes that people make when they are building. 5 major mistakes that people make when they are building. And the fifth one is what most people overlook, but very important. In this video, I will show you the 5 major and most dangerous foundation many people make in Nigeria and how to avoid them. But before we begin, let's define the word foundation. What is foundation? The foundation of a building is the part that carries the entire load of the house. If this fails, everything else also fails, no matter how beautiful the building may look like. Now, the first major mistake that people make is poor soil test. Poor soil test. Many people start building without checking the soil. If the soil is weak or the area is waterlogged, if the soil is weak or the area is waterlogged, your building may settle. That means your building may sink. And one of the effects of poor soil test is that there will be cracks on the wall. There will be crack on the wall. The building may end up sinking. Now, what are some of the solutions? One of the solutions is to ensure that you carry out a soil test. And most of the soil tests that are carried out is called sieve analysis or compaction test. It is very important you know the bearing capacity of the soil. Every soil has a bearing capacity. We call it CBRO. Every soil has a bearing capacity. It means what is the maximum load that land or that soil can carry. If a land that can carry, let's give an example, 50 tons, that is what that land can carry. And you end up building 80 tons of load on that land, it will begin to sink gradually. And at the end, it may even collapse. So every soil has its bearing capacity. And how do you know the bearing capacity of that soil? It's by carrying out a soil test on that land. Carrying out the soil test in the land is very important, but many people overlook this. Now, the second major and dangerous mistakes people make in foundation is what we call shallow foundation. Is what we call shallow foundation. Now, what is shallow foundation? Some builders don't dig deep. A shallow foundation is when you just do something, you dig a ground and the depth is not much. Some builders don't dig deep enough before laying the first block or before carrying out concrete works. And one of the effects is that it results to weak support, and they don't know that foundation is what gives support to a building. The major support that sustains a building comes from the foundation. So if you dig a shallow foundation that is not well deep, where you are supposed to dig 1 meter depth of foundation, where you're supposed to dig 0.5 meter depth of foundation, and you just end up digging maybe 0.3 or no, that foundation will have problem. Another effect of shallow foundation is what is called building becomes unstable. Building becomes unstable. Now, you have seen some cases where maybe there will just be breeze or a heavy breeze will blow in an area. A building will collapse. One of the reasons is because the foundations did not go down too much. Maybe they did a shallow foundation in that area. Another third mistakes that people make is called wrong mixing of concrete. Wrong mixing of concrete. Using too much sand or water makes your concrete weak. Most people, when they are carrying out concrete works, instead of them to follow the right mixing ratio, concrete works has the right mixing ratio. Ratio 1:4, ratio 1:6, ratio 1:8, depending on what you are casting, depending on the concrete work you are carrying out. So when you use the wrong mixing ratio, that building will end up not having the right supports. And one of the effects is this: it will have foundation cracks. Foundation cracks will occur in that building. And we also reduce the strength of that building. It will reduce the strength of that building because the strength of the concrete is reduced. A lot of people, when they are just doing concrete work, there'll be more sand. They will just be pouring sand in the concrete so that it will be many. No, as you are pouring more sand, not following the mixing ratio, you are reducing the strength of the concrete, especially if you are doing a decking, if you are casting a decking. The reason why there are many structural failures, especially upstairs, story buildings, is because the decking, they did not follow the right mixing ratio. Either they did, the sand was too much, or the gravel they did not put the right granite, or the water was actually too much. Because most of the time when you carry out a concrete works and there are too much sand, if you carry out the test, most of the tests will carry out the slump test, it will fail. Or you carry out the soil test of 7 days, it will fail. If the sand is too much, or there's too much water, or the granite is not enough, or the cement, because the more sand you put, it will reduce the strength of the cement. So it's very important that you know all this. Then the fourth major mistakes people make in foundation, the fourth major mistake people make in foundation is poor reinforcement. Poor reinforcement. Using low quality iron rods where you're supposed to use 12 mm. A lot of people end up using 8 mm, 10 mm, where you're supposed to use 16 mm, especially in story building where you're supposed to use 12 mm and maybe 10 mm, depend on the bearing capacity of that story building, what is coming up on top, whether dead load or life load. So if you are supposed to use 16 mm, you use 12 mm, just know that you are putting that building at risk. Where you're supposed to use 12 mm rod, you end up using 10 mm rod. You are putting that building at a future risk that will make it to collapse or sink or whatever or tint. The other day I was in a site, one of these sites I went to. I'll show you the video displayed here. And already it's going to be a shopping complex that's going to be built there. But because there was no proper lapping that will occur in that building, so I had to go there and make those corrections. And those corrections were not done. In the future, that story building will tint. So poor reinforcement leads to collapse of building. So that is one of the mistakes people make. And what is the effect? Weak columns. Weak columns, structural failures. What is the solution? Use standard iron rod and proper spacing. Where you're supposed to space 150 mm, space 150 mm. Where you're supposed to space 200 mm, space 200 mm. Then the fifth major and most dangerous um, mistakes people make in their foundation is no proper curing. After you have carried out concrete works, after you have carried out casting, if it is decking, if it is column, if it is beam, you're supposed to carry out what is called curing. Curing is the process of putting water in a concrete that have been casted. You put concrete on, you put water on the concrete that have been casted. Most of the time, curing occurs within the first 7 days because the more water you put on the concrete, the more strength it gets. Concrete derive more strength from water. So it's very important that you carry out curing. Now, after casting concrete, many people don't water it for curing, and this result to some of these effects. Crack occur. Crack begin to occur when you don't cure properly. There will be crack on that concrete, and wherever there is crack, it gives room for failure. It gives room for that building to collapse in the future. So it's very important that every concrete work that has been done, that you cure it for 7 days. And that curing means that you'll be putting water on it for the first 7 days. Another thing that occurred there, another effect is that there will be weak structure. And what is the solution? The solution is what I've just said. Putting water for the first 7 days. It's very important that you put water. And warning, this is very important that you know. Most building failure you see today started from foundation. Most building failure you see today started from foundation mistakes. Don't rush. Don't cut corners. What you save money on today may end up destroying your house tomorrow.